Well, here we are again. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "The purpose of life, after all, is to live it, to taste experience to the utmost, to reach out eagerly and without fear for newer and richer experience." My mother, Guelda Lewis Messina, lived her life that way. She lived it. She did things. She did so much, and for so many. Mom experienced everything life has to offer: its beauty, its ugliness, its joys, its horrors. As a child, she had a loving family, but also knew poverty and instability. As an adult, she would come to know how the other half lives, and she liked it. She grew up in the middle of nowhere, but became a world traveler. She had meager possessions as a child, but would eventually collect so many knickknacks, I thought they might make a reality TV show about her. Guelda's Baubles. She was a single mother who became a matriarch. She knew how it felt to be powerless, but eventually she knew what it was like to have influence. Mom's beginnings were humble. She was born in a shack on a farm, delivered by her grandmother, who was a midwife. She spent her early childhood on that farm with her mother, Beth McLean, and the rest of the McLean clan in southeast Oklahoma, in the shadow of Kavanaugh Mountain, which is known locally as the world's highest hill. For a brief time, Mom lived with an aunt in Howe, Oklahoma, which had about 500 residents. The farm is still there, and Howe is still a tiny town. This constancy was matched by Mom, who never forgot where she came from and returned to Oklahoma often. And she and Dad usually brought along other family and friends, and everyone who went to the farm ate well, drank a lot of beer, leaned, and laughed. Beth McLean, Pama to us, she was a single mother, just as Mom would be. When Mom was 7, she and Pama moved to Tacoma to live with Pama's new husband, Keith Lewis, a World War II veteran who served as federal veterans for decades in organizations like the Veterans of Foreign Wars and the POW MIA movement. Mom had to deal with constant change. They moved around a lot, and the family grew quickly with Mom's brothers, Russ, Dennis, and Greg Lewis. She helped raise her baby brothers, and they all remained very close. At 17, Mom married a member of the U.S. Navy and moved to San Francisco. From the farm to Howe to Tacoma to the 12th largest city in the country. Quite a journey, and she was just getting started. When Mom was just 18, she gave birth to my sister, Dana Galligan. Dana was still an infant when Mom made a very controversial decision, choosing to return to Tacoma with Dana to become a single mother. For several years, it was just Mom and Dana. They didn't have much, watching Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color on a small black and white TV, but they were grateful just to have a TV. And sometimes they could even afford chocolate sundaes. Dana told me she never felt poor, though, and her memory was that they had chocolate sundaes every week. And Mom was like, no. So in the 50s, women were not supposed to leave their husband and raise a child alone. So Mom knew she would be the subject of whisper campaigns and disapproving stares. And she knew she would be an object when she began working in the secretarial pool of the American Plywood Association. Mom said it was just like the TV show Mad Men. If you've never seen it, Mom was approached by many men. The secretaries were put on display, their desks lined up against the window of the downtown office where passersby could see them. She also had to work nights as a waitress at the New Yorker. I use the terms secretary and waitress because no one ever called Mom an administrative assistant or a server. She wasn't afforded that sort of dignity, and I won't pretend she was. As if full-time work and full-time motherhood weren't enough, Mom studied English literature at the College of Puget Sound. Mom did it all. She never got her degree, though, because fate was going to rescue her from this life where every minute of every day was a struggle. When she was 25, she met Dad, John Lewis Messina Jr., at the New Yorker, and a romance for the ages began. Theirs was the kind of love you think only happens in movies, because for most of us, it does only happen in movies. I mean, they formed a partnership that would last 60 years, and they built a life together and built a family. They married within a year. At the time, Dad taught at Puyallup High School. Now, we don't pay our teachers enough, so Dad couldn't support a large family, and Mom going back to work was out of the question. She would not return to the days when she had to spend so much time away from Dana. So Mom encouraged Dad to apply to Gonzaga Law School in Spokane, and of course he got in. So Mom and Dad temporarily relocated to Spokane, where I was born, along with my older sister Mary Beth Messina and my younger sister Megan Bostick. Mom always had activities beyond child rearing. She had a life full of activity. Mom did it all. With Dad, she built and led communities, be it through St. Rita's, the law firm, or the large softball family that Mom and Dad ran for 20 years, which at one point included 6 different teams and all their families. And God only knows how many events and parties Mom and Dad hosted. She helped people in so many ways. Just to name a few, she answered the phone for a crisis line, taught arts and crafts to children at Raymond Hall, served as a docent of the Children's Art Museum, served as president of the Catholic Women's Club, who's represented here today, and she sat on the board of the Catholic Community Services. Mom made a difference. To quote one of her heroes, Barbarella, "A life without cause is a life without effect." Eventually, Mom went back to work, helping her dear friend Joan Best with her estate sales. She also worked at Dankin's Jewelry and the Gem Cutter. She loved traveling. She and Dad circled the globe, visiting all 50 states and every continent except for Antarctica, and they thought about going there. They especially loved visiting Dad's homeland, Italy. They went there almost as often as they went to Oklahoma, and they usually brought a bunch of people with them there too. Mom was an avid reader. She cherished music and movies and Beverly Doolittle paintings. We remember her singing Bye Bye Blackbird as she made dinner. She loved comedy too, and she was an early fan of Saturday Night Live. But Dad kept falling asleep during the monologue, and Dana had moved out. So one night, Mom woke me and Mary Beth up to watch the show with her. It is one of my best memories. The musical guest was Willie Nelson, who was one of Mom's favorites. And Andy Kaufman did a comedy bit, and I immediately fell in love with his work. And Mom was the only person I've ever known who thought he was funny too. The creative arts held great meaning for Mom. It affected her deeply. She was never a painter or a writer or a musician or a filmmaker, but she understood art better than most people who make it. For example, she loved Stephen King early in his career when the critics were calling him a Pulp Fiction hack. She knew. Mom had a unique bond with each of us. She had a lot of interests, so there were a lot of different ways to be with her. Because of Mom, I love country music and satire, and my clothes always match. Mom and Dana had a bond from their time alone together. They also had a lot of shared interests, including theater. Dana's been active in theater for many years, and Mom and Dad were always supportive, especially when Dana was in the Diary of Anne Frank, and Mom declared, "You stole the show." In Mom's later years, Dana took her to several shows, including Cabaret and a musical review of Frank Sinatra, which both were favorites of Mom. Even with dementia, Dana said she remembered the words to her favorite songs. Mom let Mary Beth start watching the soap All My Children when she was 6. She didn't think it was too bad for her little girl to watch soaps. More importantly, Mom passed her love of reading on to MB, who has fond memories of her taking us to the Swayze and Proctor District libraries when we were kids. And Mary Beth still loves going to an actual library to check out books. Megan went straight from reading children's books to Stephen King and eventually became a writer herself. She also collects art and baubles, Megan's baubles. She loved watching movies with mom and loved cabaret so much she was Sally Bowles for Halloween in second grade. And of course, mom made the costume. She made all our costumes in. They also shared a fondness for Connie Francis, who was also a favorite of our grandma, Mary Messina. Mom hated gloomy days. She would be glad it's sunny. She and Dad owned a home near Phoenix for about 30 years, and they went there even more frequently than Italy and Oklahoma. And of course, they usually brought people with them. And of course, Mom became friends with the neighbors. But her favorite home was the one she designed, the beautiful house on Juniper Street, where she lived for 35 years, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, gazing out the window at the Narrows Bridges. Mom was a proud, doting grandmother who never said no to babysitting. She also had a unique bond with each of her grandchildren, Lily Galligan, Giovanna and Vinnie Pites, Mary and Ray Bostick. And the grandkids adored their grandparents. Mom was very quotable. She had all kinds of homespun sayings and snappy observations like, pretty is as pretty does. Her most famous quote was her viral moment seen around the world on YouTube. Get the heck out of here. Only Mom didn't say heck. And Dana remembers, I don't give a darn what the other kids are doing. Only Mom didn't say darn. And she always liked to remind me how lucky I am. And one time she said, you're the guy who fell in horse manure and landed in a gold mine. And she didn't say manure. She didn't actually cuss much, but when she did, it was really memorable. So for the past 8 years, dementia has brutalized my family. It's a very cruel disorder that kills people very slowly. And we had to watch helplessly as Mom and Dad lost control of their minds, their bodies, their lives. And we didn't always know what to do. In fact, we never knew what to do. And the thing is, we stuck together because we're the family that John and Guelda Messina made. If you knock a Messina down, they get up. If you knock all of us down, we pull one another up. Pope Paul VI said, somebody should tell us right at the start of our lives that we are dying. Then we might live life to the limit, every minute of every day. Do it, I say. Whatever you want to do, do it now. There are only so many tomorrows. Mom didn't need to be told that. Mom did it all. And she did it with grace, style, dignity, caring, and love. Always love. Thank you for coming.